I'd now like to introduce Emily Wood. She's going to be speaking on behalf of the Gannawarra Free from Family Violence Working Group. Emily's a health promotion worker at Northern District Community Health. Thanks, Emily.
Hi everyone, thank you, and I will just warn you, I am trialling this new working from home thing for the day, and I can almost 100% guarantee my children will try and interrupt at some stage, so I apologise in advance. I have some slides that Eden will hopefully pop up in a second, and I'm just going to give you a bit of information about our Gannawarra Free from Family Violence Working Group, just a quick overview on how we came about, and our Gannawarra Goes Orange campaign that we have just run for the third year. So the Gannawarra Free from Family Violence Working Group, it's a mouthful. I haven't quite worked out how to abbreviate it in any way yet. It came about as a part of our GLAM, which is the Gannawarra Local Agencies meeting. And I apologise if I've gotten that wrong, I often do. But as you can see, there's a whole host of Gannawarra organisations linked into that, as well as we've got Women's Health, Southern Mallee, the Mallee Family Violence Executive, Anglicare Victoria, VicPol, and the Respect for Relationships teams all contribute to these meetings. When I first joined in my role as health promotion worker, we were attending the Southern Mallee PCP Gender Equity or Family Violence working groups, and with a little bit of persuasion from Eden and the PCP team, we decided to branch out and form our own group. At the time, all three of the shires in the PCP group were in really different spots in terms of family violence work and gender equity work. And as you can see, we do have very different rates of family violence, but all of them are, as you know, alarming. So what we've done from there, we had probably one of the best things about being part of GLAM is that we could jump into some of this work. We didn't have any funding as such, and really the first Gannawarra Goes Orange campaign had actually been done the year before with the funding from Respect Victoria, and I think there was some funding from Women's Health, Southern Mallee as well. I wasn't involved in that, but what we worked on doing with the next year and with the family violence group was really amping it up. So we'd initially started, as you can see, we're prevention-based awareness raising activities for the prevention of violence against women, and educating and empowering our community and our professionals. So making sure that not only are we putting these messages out, but we're teaching people how to make change and how to move on from that and move forward from that. And we're doing that through the sharing of resources and information and ideas, and through collaborative work and partnership work, which, as most of you will know, is how we do everything in our shires. So if we can just go to the next slide. So what we've done, as we said, was the Gannawarra Goes Orange campaign. These pictures are from our very first one, which was very early quickly put together, I think, but we rallied all our staff to wear, all the staff across all the organisations in Gannawarra to wear orange, and we had morning teas with orange cupcakes, which never goes astray when trying to get people on board with an idea. We've also done International Women's Day events. All of our organisations are at some capacity looking at or doing gender equity audits. Those are one thing we have found to be a lot more difficult perhaps than they initially sound. So everyone's at various stages with intentions of doing good work in that space, but it really comes down to a capacity, understanding, and I guess the support to get through some of those, because they're quite big. I've got an abbreviation of SHREV there, which is the Strengthening Hospitals Response to Family Violence, which a number of our Gannawarra Free from Family Violence organisations are a part of, and our SHREV representative, Cynthia, and now Chelsea, attend as many of our meetings as they can. One of the things we've really sort of gone into is the school presentations. We understand that, if we go back to what Tracy was talking about, that prevention work, we're working in a prevention space, and a great space to do prevention work is with young people, and our young people who are emerging into our communities and will eventually be leaders. So we work with our local high schools, particularly around the Gannawarra Goes Orange time, but across the year we're hoping to build on those to educate our young people and to have them be a part of our events and campaigns. And alongside of that, we're also doing the promotion of our other family violence prevention programs. So the Respectful Relationships ties in really nicely there, and we often will invite them where possible to be a part of that work, because we understand that they have all the evidence and research and the tools to really guide that work. And then once again, the gender audits. So that's what we've been doing. And then to really come and hone into our Gannawarra Goes Orange campaign, we have just hosted our third Gannawarra Goes Orange campaign last November and December. You'll have to excuse this presentation. It was for the original Code Red Day, so it's in past tense, future tense, but it's now should be past. So we've completed our third. This year we stepped it up again, and we tried to do a really combined community awareness campaign. We want to have that consistent messaging. So we know that different organisations are at different capacity to host events, to attend training. So we tried to use the skills and the tools that we had available, which is probably what we'll be doing more of given this current climate. But our social media was one that we did really, really try and hone in, and have everyone sharing and promoting the same ideas and the same messages. I did have a picture, but I don't think it's in this presentation, but we shared across all of our organisations the same social media tiles for the Gannawarra Goes Orange campaign. This picture here just shows the students that we do our work with. When we do our community campaigns, we invite them to then come along and be a part of it. At the last 2 years, we've had community campaigns or launches where the students have attended and been able to take part in our pledge ceremonies. So we have a big white canvas, or a number of big white canvases, where everybody leaves their orange handprint to stamp out or to say no to violence in Gannawarra. So we've got a number of community organisational reps there. We've got sporting club leaders, school leaders, a whole host of people come out and they leave their mark, which is now the ones from this session we're hanging in our Shire Plaza in Kerrang. And we have last year's will hang in the Information Centre in Kahuna. So that's just a bit of tangible work we do. So it's more about perhaps when our students or the leaders, when they're in those spaces, or someone who knows them, they see that work and that pledge remains over time. This one here, now I apologise, as I said, this is the old presentation. This is just an example of the action plan we've been working on. As you can see, we're continuing to do our campaigns such as Gannawarra Goes Orange, International Women's Day Week, a day, and this Girl Can Week. But we've also, and I think you'll be able to just see it down the bottom there, we've realised that in doing our gender equity awareness in the community and in teaching particularly students about gender equity, and hopefully in the future sporting clubs, we need to address the role of men, and not in a negative way. So we're looking at masculinity and reframing that and supporting men to be vulnerable in their masculinity, and in our really traditionally rurally strong masculine cultures. How do we add a rural lens over that and support that work? So that's something that we're moving into alongside of our gender equity work, because we found that continued to be a bit of a blocker if we didn't address that. And I'm not sure if that's something anyone else has been finding, but we really recognise that in our Gannawarra Shire, with those traditional values, we had to have a bit of a balance of gender equity and supporting men to be vulnerable where they need to be. So that's one of the things we've been doing. As you can see from that action plan, don't worry about going back, but, oh no, it's fine. If you go to the next slide, sorry, Eden. The biggest thing we've learned is to just do it. We've picked up little tiny bits of funding here and there, particularly around the campaign time, which have been really helpful in building our campaign. But we've also applied for a lot of funding for bigger projects, which we haven't got. So we've done a lot of this through the resources and the staff and the support of the organisations that are already a part of this. And we've gone, and I think it was probably 6 months ago, we went to look over our action plan and we realised we ticked off a lot. We thought, for sure that we wouldn't have been able to get very far. And when we sat down, we'd done a lot. So the biggest learning is to just do it. The second biggest learning is to always localise whatever you can. I'm sure that the other shires will recognise it doesn't happen here. attitude that we'll often get. That's a city thing. That doesn't happen in our community. It's a very hidden issue until you localise it. That's how we tend to break through with our community engagement, and that community awareness raising is bringing it back to who we are and where we are. Changing and evolving space. So as I said, we realised that we were missing out on a really vital component with the masculinity space. So we like to think that we are open to the idea that we don't know everything and we are learning with our community. Be prepared for resistance. As with any work in this space, you'll get it. And it's how you deal with it and how you tackle it that really shows where you're going to go with it, really. Just never challenge resistance with resistance, I think. We just continue to raise awareness and empower the people who are ready to do the work. As I've also said, so teenagers are really responsive, and we love working with the teenagers. You can sort of see the moment in the sessions when they understand it. You can just see the penny drop, and it's beautiful. Partnerships are key. Consistency. Make sure, like we work across, obviously in the Gannawarra space, I'm working with Gannawarra, but I'm often working with Loddon. So we try and be really consistent in the messages that we're putting out. And to do that, we often will link up with the Respect Victoria resources or other useful resources that are out there, and be creative. Use what you've got at, what's available to you, and do what you can. So that's what we would suggest. Next slide. As I said earlier, we love Eden. We love your stats. She keeps us up to date with what's going on across the Shire. We really want to increase our community engagement in the future. We've been doing a lot of this work, but what we want to know is that A, we're getting the right messages across, and B, that we're doing it in a way that our community want, or if there's something we could be doing better, how could we be doing that? So that is our focus for the coming year, on top of a few other things, is to build that community engagement, but to do so in a safe place, making sure that anyone that is brought into the space is safe and is educated or provided education around the work that we're doing. So that's our focus for this year, and continuing to do what we're doing. Given the current climate, Gannawarra Goes Orange might be a little bit different this year, but one of our learnings was that we have power to do a lot of stuff online and spread a lot of messages online. So who knows what happens this year, we'll see. And on to the next slide was, I think, if anyone had any questions.
Any questions for Emily? No, there hasn't had any, there's no questions up on the chat line. So thank you, Emily. I really liked your point about learning with community and that focus around that continued connection with community and that engagement. We might pick up on that a little bit later or after this forum, but yeah, and the work around doing it together, partnerships. So thank you very much.
Yeah, we couldn't do what we do without you guys, so thank you for your involvement.
Thanks, Emily.